talking about, like, if I don't feel bad about cussing, like feeling convicted about like drinking, if you feel convicted about don't do it. If I don't feel convicted or bad about cussing, then it can't be that bad. Well, your heart is also going to lead you astray. It says specifically, do not trust your heart. So just because, well, your heart doesn't feel bad about this, that doesn't mean that it's okay. That's where we're going far over. That's where like pedophiles and rapists and stuff get it, because it doesn't feel bad to them. They don't feel wrong about it. That's an overgeneralization. I'm sure a lot of them feel just utterly awful about it. But in general,
but I think you're spot on. Like we justify it in our hearts. You know, we don't ever see it as that bad, or else we wouldn't do it. And that's where I kind of told you, like I kind of it's starting to hit me where it's like, have I really just been justifying myself that like it's not that bad? Like when I'm telling like I should have stopped swearing or something like that. And so like again, more and more lately, I'm just like I need to kind of back down out of this and kind of pull back. It's a process, you know. Like I've trained my mind and mouth to have that all the time, and especially if you read James, like.
Sorry, you do you. I'm gonna look up a verse.
Yeah, so it's like in James 3, chapter 3. It just talks about like we put bridles in horses' mouths and rudders on ships because they control the whole thing, and it just talks about like, but we can't even tame our own tongue.
Oh, that was the verse. Cool.
Yeah. So like we're even unable to tame our own tongue, and it's like it's hard to do it, and it also just kind of talks about how like. See how great a forest a little fire kindles. And like it talks about, and the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. It talks about like our tongue, like it can set a forest on fire, just a little spark, just a little flame, just a little words. And so it's just kind of like, it just talks about how like it's hard to tame it, it's hard to control it, and it's also really disastrous.
Did it say? Can you read it one more time? It said. Did it say it's hard to tame it, or
so
you cannot tame it?
Well, like earlier, it's like, for we all stumble in many things, and if anyone does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, also able to bridle the whole body. Indeed, verse 3, indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths so that they may obey us, and we turn the whole body. Look also at large ships. Although they are large and are driven by fierce winds, they are turned by a very small rudder wherever the pilot desires. Even so, the tongue is a little member and boasts great things. Let me go to the part. Verse 8. But no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison.
So, like, no man can tame your tongue, is what it says.
Yeah, like we can tame. Like, I mean, when you think about it, like we've tamed animals. Like, you ever watch like Tiger King or something? I don't know. Like,
I didn't actually watch that.
You watch like if you ever see those like videos where there's some like rich prince or something like that who has like a cheetah in his car, like in his Ferrari or something like that. Like, you can literally tame a cheetah or a tiger.
But Aladdin.
But yeah.
There you go. Jasmine had a tiger.
Yeah, but like your tongue, you can never fully tame, which is a wild thought.
I want to bring that part up, that you cannot tame your tongue, because if you're solely trying, well, I just need to cuss less. If you're solely, that's your goal, is to cuss less, it's not going to work, because it says you can't do it. But Deuteronomy 36 says, the Lord your God will change your heart in the hearts of all your descendants, so that you will love him with all your heart. If the words that come out of our mouth flow from your heart, you have to fix the source. So if your heart is the source, it says God will change the source. Yeah. So we're trying to change the water behavior in the stream instead of the brook that's making the stream in general. Again,
I think someone like brought this, like we're changing a behavior, but we're not changing the heart. Like you can change maybe not saying as much bad words, but your heart's still an issue.
Right. So that's
like,
just...
Is that kind of what you're saying? Like,
yeah.
With the whole, like, you're changing like a little river, but not the whole brook.
Right. You're changing the outflow instead of the source of it. And so I hope that's I'm trying to say that for people that would love to stop or are like, you know what? I really should. I would like to make a change. I want to stop doing this and to be separate from the world and have that. For those, like, don't just try to stop. I'm saying just very particularly. Yeah. Don't just try to stop cussing or cuss less. and focus on that. Focus on God and your relationship with him and him changing your heart. And then it's going to flow out and your words are going to change and you're going to start like having fruit of the Spirit, which is going to flow out. And I think that if that is on your heart and that is something that you really do feel convicted about at this point, and you're pursuing God and you're like, I'm pursuing God and I want this to be changed, I believe that it's going to change. Like there's going to be a lot of work involved. There's going to be a lot of, well, crap, I just did that again, and falling into it.
Said crap.
I said crap.
Is that a bad word? Wow. Sorry. Just giving me a hard time about it.
I don't know. I don't feel in my heart that it's a bad word. That it'll flow out and it'll change.
So kind of like along the lines we were talking, like it's the heart that needs to change. Like this makes me think of Ephesians 5. I don't remember if you read 4 or chapter 5, verse 3. But all fornication, all uncleanliness or covetousness, let it not even be named among you, as is fitting for saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor coarse jesting, which are not fitting, but rather giving of thanks. So it's talking about like instead of having all these filthy language coming out of your mouth and all these bad jokes or all these awful things, it should be thankfulness. And so, like, it's just kind of like wild. Like, it's saying, like, don't just stop doing it, but let thankfulness be what comes out of you.
Yeah, there's the...
But that requires a changed heart. That requires that requires more than just okay, I need to stop swearing, you know?
I think that's a good verse that's showing you that when you're trying to get away from something, don't just constantly think about what not to do or what to get away from, but remind yourself of what your goal is, what you're going towards. Like, I'm not just running away from bad, dirty jokes or coarse language or whatever it is, but I'm going towards, it gives me a goal of thankfulness. Like, I don't know what this even looks like if you're like, well, instead of cursing, I'm going to thank that person for whatever. I don't, or even just not even verbally, but just instead of, if you can get to a point where you can stop yourself or before or after and thank God for something or something, like, I don't know, how do you change that? Like, but it's a goal. It gives you what to go from and what to go towards.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it gives us a better idea of what we should turn to, or rather what we're turning from. So I'm just curious what you think, like, why do you think the Bible is against that? Why do you think the Bible is like, doesn't want, or why do you think rather God, it's not like, the Bible is its own thing. God, why do you think he doesn't want us swearing or, having filthy words coming out of our mouth? Is that something to kind of think about?
That's like asking, why did the inventor of a spoon make it to only do one thing?
Yeah.
Why did the inventor of shoes make it so you can walk in them and they're not designed to go on your hands? Do you get to question the creator? So that's my initial answer of just what kind of question is, well, why did God do this? I don't know. I don't know God.
Yeah.
But I think my add-on to that is because it sets you apart from the world. Kind of back to my initial. There is obviously a difference of when someone does not cuss, because we just talked about people will change their behavior, change their words around you because they have noticed it, even if you say nothing at all to them about it.
Yeah.
There's an obvious difference.
And I like I said, I noticed that with some people. Like, I'll not swear in front of certain people, and like in front of Nate, I have no filter, just...
Nate cusses like a sailor.
Yeah. Our sound guy is pretty vulgar. No.
Just kidding.
JK.
Just kidding. That's totally wrong.
No, I think you're pretty spot on. Like, this makes me a little bit further down, like Ephesians 5. Like, when you talk about you need to stand out, like it says, Ephesians 5, verse 8, for you were once darkness, but now you are the light of the Lord. Walk as children of the light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness, righteousness, and truth, finding out what is acceptable to the Lord. So it's like talking about, like, you were once darkness, and now you're not. So act like it.
Right.
Like, it's kind of like just wild. Like, like you really do stand out, and God is trying to make you stand out. like it's easy to know that there's a light on when you're in a dark room. Like you can clearly see it because it's like it stands out.
You mentioned you potentially, or at least did find that you are less approachable, less relatable if you're talking to someone that does not cuss.
Yeah.
That's what you said?
Well, like so, like one of the things like I found, and I think like some people might, is that like for people who do cuss, such as I, all right, or even people who cuss more, like being around people who don't swear, it's not that like you're super off-putting or that you intentionally try to be off-putting, but it's just like you're not the same cut as me, you know, like you're not the same as I. You clearly are very different. Like it's like being around someone who grew up very differently. We're not homeschoolers. Yeah, it's like us public schoolers versus homeschoolers. It's like, yeah, I could tell you're from homeschool. I'm so sorry. I slam you guys so much for that.
For those that don't know, our camera guy and sound guy are homeschooled, but they're pretty cool.
Yeah,
they turned out.
They made out to be more of the normal.
You were the face. You guys actually make it happen.
I know. Yeah. So it's just kind of like I find that to be like most people generally like to be around people who are like them.
Yes.
But at the same time, like this is one of those things like I kind of struggled with is like, do I want to stand out or do I want to kind of be more relatable, be more like them? And I think like that, and that's where I'm saying like, was I trying to weasel my way out of what God's saying? And that was one of the more recent questions. Like, you know, I've been kind of like hit with is, why am I still swearing? Why am I still having this kind of mouth?
I don't think it should be on the person who doesn't cuss to need to fit in better by cussing.
Yeah.
Like, if they're not relatable because they don't cuss, I don't think that's... maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that's ever the deciding factor of something. Like, there has to be more. Like, if you're not relatable, maybe they're not relatable because they are acting super uppity and holier than thou, or they are sneering at the people that cuss, or they just don't have similar interests or values or something like that. I feel like that has to go deeper. That would make you feel like you're not fitting well with someone.
Yeah. And there's probably other reasons with that, and it's not like just because I can't be friends with you because you don't cuss, but it's just one of those things. Like, I don't know, like it's just it really stands out when you don't swear. It's so weird how like it speaks so much that you don't say that.
Right.
Like it really does. Like it's like a megaphone, just not swearing. It really is a megaphone.
I've had a couple people ask me straight up why I don't cuss. And yeah, I feel like we're just going in circles now.
But this is one of those verses, 1 Peter 3. I didn't have this prepared or written, but I'm just kind of winging it right now. Shooting it from the hip, right?
Right.
I don't know. Is that what you said?
No, I don't say that.
Okay. All right. Because like when you don't run in the same way that the ungodly does, you know, they think it is strange that you don't run in the same. I think they use the word dissipation as they do. Like I
don't think that's a word. Precipitation.
I'm not sure which one
Disposition.
I'm not sure, but like it was just saying like that people find it strange when you don't behave the same way that they do, like acting in the flesh or in the lust with the Gentiles. Like they think it's so strange that you're not like, why aren't you doing what I'm doing? You know, you really do stand out. And like Peter talks about, like Gentiles and people, I guess, who swear, they'll notice it because like it's quick to realize you're not swearing with me or something like that. So anyways, like one of the questions I asked earlier is like, why do you think like the Bible is against swearing or you know, using this kind of language? Let me see if I can find it. To Proverbs, I feel like this guy's wise or something, man.
I think so.
Proverbs like chapter 26 verse 18, like it talks about like a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I was only joking. And it was just one of those interesting things, like when we throw around these dirty words, when we throw around these harsh things, it's literally like throwing knives at someone, and it's like, I'm just kidding. but you're throwing dangerous things that's harmful. And
I
like,
hate when people do that. They'll say such a mean thing, and
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
just
no,
kidding. JK.
No, you weren't.
yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where like they say it just because they realize that, they messed up. But it's
Yeah.
like,
They're like, oh, they're actually hurt. Man, I guess I'm joking.
yeah. And so like, this is just like one of those interesting things that I'm like, this is kind of what swearing is like, because you don't really know what it's doing, because it's just literally like playing with knives. It's like juggling with knives at someone, like, or like you're tossing arrows, or you're tossing death. It literally says death. Like, I'm just thinking like you're throwing death at someone, be like, ha 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 ha, JK, LOL, It clearly, like, it's foolish and it says like, yeah, he just sees his neighbor saying it like it's a joke.
Right.
And so I'm thinking like, I kind of understand why we shouldn't be saying it, because we don't, we don't know what we're saying often, and we don't know how other people receive it. I feel like, like a lot of people get hurt and kind of broken over just things that we don't think are that bad or hurtful.
You can go back to the old WWJD bracelets.
Oh, yeah.
What would Jesus do?
Which, honestly, one of the things that just messed with my mind the most that someone mentioned was like, maybe this might help, settle the question, should Christians cuss, is, can you imagine Jesus cussing? Like, if he walked in here, do you think Jesus would be like, yo, what up, bleep? Like, I don't know. Like, do you think he would ever say something like that?
Imagine Jesus coming in here and saying, I'm so effing angry.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
Can you imagine that's how he, speaks? And it's like, that kind of like helped me realize like, oh, yeah, there's really not a Christian way of cussing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was just kind of interesting. Like,
it's really like, is it glorifying to God? I'm yawning. Okay.
Need some coffee.
I've got the coffee maker.
We got 2 coffee makers.
Everything you should do, whether you eat or drink, whatever you do everything for the glory of God. It's the same thing. Is it glorifying to God? Would God do it? Because that's the same thing.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much like handles that one. And,
I think we got it.
I mean, what do you think about taking the Lord's name in vain?
Cursing, cussing, swearing. We got it. Next one. So swearing, for some reason, is the same thing as cussing, cursing, but they're also all 3 different meanings for some reason. So I don't know. But so
I feel like they're synonyms, and like they
but they're also totally
they're different. They're unique, but like people use the word interchangeably. Like,
yeah, it's so weird. So. But swearing, or like, man, I swear to God, this is gonna happen. Like, people do that. It's using the Lord's name in vain, and or I don't know, people. I don't know why people started using God's name in their cussing and swearing.
Yeah,
like it's just
JC or OMG or
right.
God
GD,
or something,
yeah, whatever. Yeah, and like, why did that become a thing?
Was that neat?
Do you know? Can you tell me what does it mean to use the Lord's name in vain?
This is actually really interesting. Didn't have this marked out. This is going to be like in Malachi. It talks about like at one point. I'm just going to quote it. It's in the book of Malachi, I believe, and it talks about how he rebukes Israel because they use their name, because they use his name in vain, and they say, "In what way have we used your name in vain?" Like, Israel's asking this, and he says, "If I am your father, where is my honor? If I am your master, where is my reverence?" And so like he's not saying like they're taking his name in vain because they're saying JD, OMG, JC, or whatever, whatever other way you can, swear and using spiritual words, whatever, He's basically saying, you call me father, yet you don't treat me like you would treat your own father. You call me master, you call me Lord, but like, you don't treat me like I'm your Lord. And so when people ask, like, what do you think taking the Lord's name in vain is? I'm like, he kind of emphasizes that more in Malachi, that it's like, when we call God our Father, who do we treat better? Like, do we treat it? Yeah. Do we treat him like he really is our Father, or like we call him Lord? What does Lord mean?
Well, that's Luke 6:46. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and you don't do what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
And that one's straight up. So exactly what you're saying, but this was new to me. Like, the taking the Lord's name in vain, the way you're describing it, is not having this reverence, not putting the weight behind God's name that it should have.
Mm-hmm.
That was new when I was looking this up, because really taking the Lord's name in vain was very Christianese to me.
Mhm.
It's just someone's like, oh, don't take the Lord's name in vain, taking the Lord's name. And I'm like, I just thought that meant, well, don't cuss with his name in it. Like, that's really what I thought. But
yeah.
the whole reverence, it's using his name wrong and using it without its rightful sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one I was reading about. It was on gotquestions.org, which is a really good resource in case.
Larry sends me something on that. Larry sends me something on that every time.
Right. So
I love it. It's so
gotquestions.org.
resourceful.
Look it up.
It's actually really. It's actually very resourceful.
You got questions. So they were saying that one way of using the Lord's name in vain is calling yourselves Christian or follower of Christ without obeying his commands.
Yeah.
Right there. And that was like a blow to me. I was like, what? Oh my gosh. I'm taking the Lord's name in vain when I don't know, it went from me to you. It's harder to say that's why.
It's hard to admit that we do it, right?
Right. When I willingly sin, knowingly sin, I am taking the Lord's name in vain. And so that was like, oh, wow. And there's so many things with it.
Which is like so different, because like growing up, I always thought the only way you can take the Lord's name in vain was if you use like those three common swear words, GD, OMG, and JC. Like, I thought those are the only ways you can take his name in vain. And it's like, as you said, like, this is new to you. This, like, I sort of knew. I think Tony might have mentioned this even offhandedly a while back. But it was like when I read Malachi like 2 or 3 years ago, I was reading this and I'm like, whoa, this is kind of wild. Like, he's saying you're taking my name in vain, and they're asking, how are we doing it? I don't know what you're talking about. And it's exactly as you're saying. Like, we're just not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Right. And yet we call him God. We call him Lord. We call him Father, Teacher, Master, whatever.
I think that's a good little thing on the end there. That's good. I hope that's helpful, because it really was interesting to me. I had no idea what that really like actually meant, like deeper meaning to that.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's a whole lot you can really talk about. It's just one of those like little side or cool little things you kind of learn. A
little bonus.
I know, like that's a little bonus for you guys right there. You thought we were just gonna talk about cussing. There we go. Boom, sneak that in there. But I think that's it's been a really good talk. We hope to continue some of these other discussions, hopefully with Jonathan, and we'll have some guests come on who might, bring in something a little more different, a little more fresher to the topic. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and just thank you for taking the time to hear us just kind of ramble and give our spiel about this.
Spiel is such a good word. I've been using spiel a lot lately.
Have you?
Yeah, and I used it like 6 times the other day.
No,
somebody was making fun of me. But
I've
like,
used that word like 3 times in the past decade.
It's such a fun word to say, spiel. Sorry. Anyways, thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching, and you guys have a good day.
Peace.